everyone to this special meeting of the IJB. Really grateful to folk for making the time. This is not a normal IJB day, but we, various legal reasons, we had to slot an extra one in. So as I say, welcome and good morning, or since this is Gaelic Awareness Week, perhaps I should have said Falcha agus Madenvar. So I'll hand over to Mrs. Robertson for the housekeeping.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Integration Joint Board. In the event of a fire or other emergency requiring our evacuation, you will hear a continuous single-tone klaxon. You should proceed immediately out of the building via the designated exit routes, which are out via the door through which you entered, and head back to the main staircase and down to the ground floor. On exiting the building, you should proceed to the Arts Centre in Queen Street, where we will wait until clearance is given to return to the building. The closest toilets are located at either end of the corridor off the main stairwell. It would also be appreciated if mobile phones could either be switched off or put on silent mode. Today's meeting is a hybrid meeting and we have some people in the townhouse and others participating remotely. If anyone joining online would like to ask questions, please use the raise your hand function or indicate in the meeting chat and I will alert the chair. The meeting is being recorded and published online after the meeting. Could all members leave their camera on but switch off their microphone when not speaking? I will now do a roll call and would ask that members confirm their attendance when their name is called so that this is clear in the recording and can also be recorded in the minute. Councillor Cook, Chair.
Present.
Hussein Patwa, Vice Chair.
Present. Good morning.
David Blackburn.
Good morning. Present.
Councillor Bunsell.
Present.
Councillor Fairfield.
Present.
Councillor Gregg.
Present.
Jim Curry. Jamie Donaldson.
Good morning. Present.
Amanda Foster.
Present.
Maggie Hepburn. Kenneth McAlpine.
Present.
Amy MacDonald. Present. Shona McFarlane.
Present.
Fiona Mitchell-Hill.
Present.
Debbie Oigan. Graham Simpson.
Good morning. Present.
And we have apologies from Mark Burrell, Richie Johnson, Jenny Gibb, Caroline Howarth and Phil Mackey. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. So welcome. As this is a special meeting focused just on one item, i.e. budgetary matters, we won't be doing the normal video that we do at a normal IJB meeting. Depending on how quickly or slowly we get through, we'll also be doing the take a break after.
And they said that they won't do any like fabrication as in, you know, turning the ashes into something. But they can give you like pendants and necklaces and things that can have the ashes in them.
Yeah, that's what you were looking for, sort of thing, is it?
Well, no, it's more for what you looked at, where the
Okay.
ashes would be like in something.
Okay.
But she was like,
Oh yeah, just like you just.
Sorry,
it's like
there's
an open
someone
circle sort of thing.
online who's having a conversation in the background. Could you please turn your mics off? Thank you. Yeah, so where was I? Yeah, no video. We'll take a break after 90 minutes or thereabouts, depending on how slowly or quickly we move through the agenda. As you'll see from the paper, the main focus of today's meeting is on the 24-25 budget position, where we need to make a formal request to NHS Grampian and Aberdeen City Council. The 25-26 position is mentioned on Passon, and to give a bit of context, my view is that we probably shouldn't be doing any detailed discussion on the 25-26 position this morning, because we'll be doing that on the 18th of March meeting. And I think it would be premature, not least because there are discussions ongoing between officers from the Health and Social Care Partnership and our partners at NHS Grampian and the City Council, and I think those are happening on a pretty much daily basis. So the position that we thought we were in a week ago is not the position that we thought we were in now, or we think we're in now. So it's a bit of a moving target. So rather than getting into the nitty gritty of that today, I think we should defer that to the 18th of March. Having said which, I'm not saying don't ask any questions, don't mention the war. We should just, please do ask if you want to, but I don't think we should be getting too much into the nitty gritty of that. So with that brief intro, we'll go on to item 2.1 on the agenda, which is declarations of interest or transparency statements. Do we have any? None online, I think, and none in the room. So in which case, next item is 3.1, which is determination of exempt business. And we don't have any, so that will take us on to the main event, which is item 4.1, which is the finance report, which was in the additional circulation. So perhaps I could ask Amy McDonald to, if she wants to kind of highlight anything particularly in the report before we go into questions.
Thanks very much, Chair. And as the Chair was saying, the purpose of the report is really to understand the financial position at the end of the year, the 24-25 current financial year, and how we move forward from that position with both our partners. I just really want to give you a summary of where we reported at Q3. So at the end of Q3, looking forward to the end of the year, we were forecasting a £10.5 million loss position. There's been a slight variation when we look at the end of January results, but it's quite small in terms of the slight pressures that we feel, and those have come from a slightly increased cost in out of area care. So we're still in a reasonable position, and we're reasonably confident at this stage of that year-end position, and that is what we need to discuss today in terms of how we will manage to balance our budget towards the end of the year. I've noted in the paper that we've deferred to the integration agreement, and the integration agreement gives us options, and the option that we are putting forward is that both partners help support in underpinning the loss that we have this year. And that loss is determined, the loss split between partners is determined by the amount of funding each partner provides into the joint partnership each year. And that split is outlined at section 4.6, where we have considered the position of the NHS Grampian funding 61.46% and Aberdeen City Council 38.5%, which means consequently NHS Grampian would contribute 6.426 million and Aberdeen Council £4.029 million. And it's to put that before the board to get their thoughts or otherwise on that, which would then require our chief officer to write to both parties to request that funding for the integrated joint board to close off this current financial year. And that's probably, we can come back to that point, John. I'll just move on to articulating where we are in respect of 25-26, the next financial year. As you appreciate, it's a busy time for finance. We're not just working towards year end. We're kind of looking forward to understand what the year end position means for the next financial year. And certainly the pressures that we've seen in 24-25 continuing to 25-26, sorry, a bit of a tongue twister. And what we've seen from our financial position, when we came forward in Q3, we were forecasting around £21.4 million of pressure into next year. We've got some additional pressure that's feeding through, which has increased that up to £24.3 million. That means we've got, if you like, a more significant savings challenge for next year. And that's particularly the work that we're really focusing on just now to make sure that when we bring forward savings, we're doing that in the context of protecting essential frontline services. And so that makes it, if you like, a positive challenge in that we having that target means that we're looking sensibly around the savings that we can make without damaging the service that we deliver. We have got plans for around £19 million worth of savings, and we're still slightly short at the moment with around £5 million worth of savings still to find that are unidentified. We recognise that as a partnership, it is necessary for us to bring forward a balanced position when we have our budget meeting on the 18th of March, and that's what we intend to do, and present that more detailed position at that time. And that really is kind of I should probably say it is a challenging financial position, and we absolutely recognise that. And that's probably why we're all really focused on how we move forward in the next 12 months. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks, Amy. Any questions for Amy? I saw Martin first, then Hussein. Right, so Martin first and then Hussein.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, it is a significant budget gap that we have before us. And I'm just wondering, when we approach our partners to assist with this gap, would they not likely be looking for some kind of reassurances about the on the actions that are being taken to seriously engage with the savings challenge? So, for example, there's mention there of the budget savings oversight group. Is that an opportunity to give reassurance to the council and to the NHS that there is some very serious work underway to identify opportunities for making savings in a very balanced way that are, that can provide reassurance that the most vulnerable are being protected, and that this is a reasonable ask.
Absolutely. That's of paramount importance around any decision we're making, and particularly around the budget savings group. We felt it necessary to really strengthen our governance in that area. So it's not just, if you like, finance colleagues sitting around looking at the budget. We've involved as many appropriate people as we can in those discussions to make sure that the steps that we take moving forward protect those essential services that we provide, so that we do protect those most vulnerable in society. And as part of that process, as the Chair alluded to, we are very much engaging with our partners to help understand how we move forward, particularly over the next 12 months. And I think that although it's a significant challenge, I think we need to consider the positives around that there is an element where we will have to cut costs, but there's also the very positive part where we're going to look to make our processes and the way that we run as an organisation more effective. And that's far better for the people that we serve, because it means at that point we're not cutting services to drive efficiency, we're making things better. So it's far healthier from a partnership perspective that is the approach that we would be looking to take.
Okay, I'll bring in Hussein. Just to add to that, there was I think the budget oversight group and the enhanced governance arrangements that are at point 6 of the report are it is showing a tightening of our financial management, but that's on the back of there was a report that came from internal audit that went to the council's audit committee last week or the week before, which basically said we have reasonable levels of governance. And if there are any auditors in the room, you'll know that when an auditor says reasonable, that's not okay. In order to speak, reasonable means good. So we had good systems in place, and we're actually now tightening those up, which we do need to do, because even if you're okay, you can always do better. But I think that's further reassurance. And then over to Hussein.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you, Amy, for the report. And can I also just put on record my thanks to your good self and also to SLT colleagues, partners and budget holders for the power of work that you've done over this last 3 weeks, and I have no doubt in the months and years to come. Martin has largely covered my question around the composition of the budget oversight group. So I'd like to turn to just a couple of other details, if I may. Under 6.5, there's a mention of a £2 million, 2.9 million, my apologies, pressure from a service provider. Now, my understanding, and I will stand corrected if appropriate, is that this was a scheduling issue with invoicing. And in previous discussions, I know that this issue had come up around trying to get Timaeus paperwork from Commission services so that we have the numbers that we need at the time we need them. I just wondered if you could give any narrative as to how those discussions with partners are going in order to assist in your own reporting going forward.
Thanks very much. You're saying, I think we're very conscious of the year-end processes that we work through, and certainly we're engaging with our providers and just really encouraging them to send their invoices into us at an early enough stage so that we can record all those costs in our ledgers for this year. As you'll appreciate, the outturn position for this year is an estimated position, and it will vary, as we've seen at the end of January. And I think it's for us to really understand, if you like, all the ups and downs, and to bring forward that reasonable position. And sometimes your estimations are slightly out, and that's why we have that recognition of that additional pressure that we're showing in the forecast position for 25-26 at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I want to go right back to basics, if I may, just to ensure that I understand this correctly, but it might also be helpful for colleagues as well. John, if I may. You mentioned, Amy, that the integration scheme gives us options. And one of the options was the splits that we are recommending in the papers today. I'm just wondering, if I may, and apologies for the time this might take, could you go through as to what the other options may be, just so that we have those in front of us?
Yeah, so my understanding from the integration agreement is that it doesn't need to be a contribution from both partners. One partner could make the full contribution, or alternatively, at the start of the financial year, if you're keen, if you're good on your forecast, partners can contribute more at the beginning of the year rather than at the end of the year, as we're doing just now.
Thanks very much. I'll leave it there for now, John, and let colleagues come in for the moment, but thank you for that.
Thanks, Hussein. I've got Jennifer.
Thank you, Chair. I've one question about it mentions strategic plan context in the report, sort of that's item 3.1, saying that the ACHSCP must work to provide statutory services. And I'm just wondering, is there going to be, I was just thinking about the impact there. Clearly there's a level of service that must be provided, but I'm just wondering what impact the budget and the funding issues are going to have on the provision of those statutory services. Is it possible to have a bit more information about that, please? Thank you.
So our position is very much we are going to provide essential frontline services. So our position doesn't change there, that we understand the legislative environment that we work in, and we are going to continue to do that, as other health and safety, health and social care partnerships will do across Scotland, even though we recognise the growing costs that we have in that area. I think, as I was saying earlier, that there is a requirement that we have to manage our costs really carefully next year. But I think our biggest opportunity comes around the strategic approach that we're going to be taking around understanding the whole system differently and looking to drive efficiency through there. And by that, it's not about making, if you like, short-term savings across a certain specific area, because that obviously sometimes has unintended consequences down the line, and certainly we'll allude more to that when we come to our budget paper. But you have to consider the whole system when you're looking at your savings, and obviously what we are required to do as a partnership, we would see that service level around those essential service provisions as being maintained.
Yeah, apologies. It was just to give a bit of assurance. As the social work lead, my job is to make sure that we do deliver our statutory duties. As Amy said, we are looking at efficiencies of how we can deliver our statutory duties more streamlined and better. But my key oversight of the statutory duties is to make sure people are safe and they're getting the care that they need, just to give you some assurance.
Do you want to come back, Jennifer?
No, thank you for that answer. Could I ask another question? And again, it was about the options that were available to the IJB. There were two options mentioned. There was another. Could I suggest or propose? Is there a possibility that we could that the chief officer could write to, for example, the Scottish Government to ask for financial assistance specifically for the 24-25 financial year, given that this is, we're in this situation now as we approach the year end, and I believe that the funding for the IJB originally comes from the Scottish Government, but part of the funding goes to NHS Grampian, part goes to Aberdeen City Council, and then they passport that funding along. And again, I'm assuming that all of that funding does get passported in, but I just wondered, would that be another option to contact the Scottish Government directly? Thank you.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I think, and it's not just the pressure that we exert. Certainly, I'm a member of the Chief Finance Officers Group, and we're lobbying hard with government just now and working to present the pressures across Scotland. Just now, we feel that there's a £1 billion pressure across health and social care. Mitigations don't reduce that away. They still sit at around 660 million. There's substantial sums of money, and what we're concerned about is the building pressure in the system, and essentially we feel that the strength just not in our own voice, but the voice of everyone coming together to highlight that. And certainly I think that message is getting through. You may have seen the update in the National Insurance Bill that's going through Westminster just now, and really positive news that the Lords have made some amendments to that bill to suggest that care providers, GP practices, pharmacists and small businesses, for example, may be excluded from the additional national insurance contributions that will be effective from the 1st of April. And that would be a significant contribution into the sector if that was upheld. So we see that there's pressure coming from a number of areas to help and support, particularly in the health and social care area. And as that continues and that momentum grows, that we do feel that there's a degree of positiveness around what the potential could be in the future. And certainly it's part of all of our jobs to keep those messages strong and clear as we move forward into the next financial year.
And I'd like just to build on that, Jennifer. So absolutely, I think from speaking to some of my partners and chief officers in other parts of the country, they don't all get the budget that is passported from the government to either the local authority or the NHS, but we absolutely do. All the money that comes in absolutely is passported appropriately across to us. And I guess we have just written to Neil Gray, the Cabinet Secretary, this week as chief officers collectively to raise our concerns around about the financial position we're in, and we're actually due to meet him next Wednesday night to discuss that further, specifically about the funding of IJBs. Thank you.
If I could just add to that, I sit on a group that represents all the IJB chairs and vice chairs across Scotland as a whole, and that group has written also to Neil Gray setting out the position, and it was, what's the word I should use? It wasn't strongly, it wasn't rude or anything, but it was, this is how it is. So it wasn't pulling any punches, albeit it was obviously a diplomatically worded letter, and there was a unanimous view, whether whichever IJB you were in, we were all pretty much in the same boat, whether you're in Shetland or Dumfries and Galloway, and all points in between. So I think there are a number of missives going into the CABSEC and to officials to point out the financial pressures we're all under. And if I could just come back with a question on the back of Jennifer's question, from in terms of writing to Scottish Government to try and get some money for 24-25, given that we've only got a month to go before the end of the year, even if Scottish Government said yes, would we be technically okay to get the money from Scottish Government rather than from the partners at this point?
So my understanding is that if there's a change that was fed through, then we would be able to make an adjustment if that did happen. And Chair, if I could just clarify the figures that I brought forward in terms of the £1 billion of pressure in health and social care, those were from the Accounts Commission report from July this year. Very much.
Any more comments, questions? Yes, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the answers. I think one of my concerns is that if we ask the two partners, Aberdeen City Council and NHS Grampian, for additional contributions, they are both under severe financial pressures themselves, and they're both providing, really essential services. And I know that Aberdeen City Council, for example, the kinds of service it provides, things like, housing and transport, education, they all affect people's health. I'm aware that the Aberdeen City Health and Social Care Partnership, that is providing essential service to people focused on health and social care. But the NHS Grampian and Aberdeen City Council are also both providing services that affect people's lives, including their health. So I just find it, I'm quite concerned that we would be asking them, to provide extra funding for the IJB. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. And I got Maggie first, and then Kenneth.
Can I just ask a question about the 18th of March meeting, because it's obviously not very far away, and if what's going to be presented is quite significant budget savings, because we've got the budget oversight group working on that, can I ask what's going to be presented at that meeting in terms of detail as far as impact assessments, and whether there'll be enough information for members to be able to make a clear decision on what is the actual impact of what's being presented as savings at that meeting?
I think as part of that meeting, that it's essential that we provide the understanding on where we see the savings coming from and what that saving is made up of. I don't think I could not provide that information, and certainly as part of that, we would be providing the impact assessments that have been carried out in advance of putting those savings forward. It's kind of being able to understand if there is an impact, how that's been mitigated, and so that we feel that that's an appropriate saving. But I think when you're looking at such a large degree of savings, that I think those discussions that we're having with partners now are really important, because if you like, our system is already running under pressure. We've seen that with the outturn for this financial year, that we haven't stopped providing those essential services. We've incurred a greater cost as a result of the need to keep doing that. And I think in terms of going forward next year, that it's not unlike any other budget where you set out where you think these savings are reasonable savings that we can make without impact. But if we work down and we take these other savings, these savings may have an impact. And that's where the board will have a decision on whether they want to pursue with that saving, because I will put forward what I propose as a budget for discussion and agreement. And then there's some decisions around what the board may have red lines around that we wouldn't want to do that. And certainly as officers, we would be making that very clear as part of that budget pack.
I'm just thinking about the organisations themselves who might be involved in the potential for cuts. Sorry. And the time between now and the 18th of March is not long in terms of getting that information to be able to give the budget oversight group enough detail potentially to understand what the actual impact assessment of these decisions might be. And my concern is it comes to the IJB, and as members we see a list without necessarily seeing impact assessments from because there will surely be an enormous list of what's needed to be changed, and just a concern, especially from a third sector perspective, but whether there's enough time for people to present potentially what the impact's going to be on their service users and the people they work with.
And I think that's the value of having the budget savings group, that we can have those discussions internally and make sure that we don't have like negative impacts where we don't want to have negative impacts, and particularly very much in supporting and understanding the essential services that the third sector do provide. We don't just see ourselves as, if you like, working with the NHS and with Aberdeen City Council. Very much the services that we provide in the city are a combination of many people that come together, and many organisations in the third sector have a key role to play there. And we've been working through how we manage to maintain those services going forward, particularly for third sector, which have such an important role, particularly around mental health and counselling services, that they're really key to the whole wealth of the system going forward. The budget savings oversight group is very much there to scrutinise the savings that are coming forward and to understand of savings which we feel are reasonable savings and ones which we feel have a higher degree of impact. And those high degrees of impact we have got a strong awareness around, and we're able to make sure that we can then convey that to other people so that we protect those areas that are so key.
Can I just ask, in terms of the Budget Oversight Group membership, I think some people had asked some previous questions about who's actually on it, and you said relevant people or significant people. I can't remember the exact phrase you used, but is it all council officers that are on the Budget Oversight Group?
No, the budget oversight group, it's the key, if you like, executive leads across each of the areas of the partnership. So that involves NHS and the Aberdeen City Council staff coming together, and indeed with the senior reporting officer for each of the areas that are leading that particular area of change. So we are confident we've got the right people in the room in order to make those decisions, so that there's the balance of view that comes forward when any savings proposals put forward. So thank you.
Could I just come in there as well? So I think just to give some assurance to the board that the conversations that we're having on the financial position of us happens regularly with both partners. So I meet regularly with the chief exec of NHS Grampian and the council together. So we're having that conversations there. So they're understanding what the decisions we're doing. I think that we also have a performance meeting where we also meet with Amy, and I meet with both the chief execs and then the director of finance for NHS Grampian and the chief finance officer for the council. So I think we're having that conversation, so they've got good awareness of where we are, the position we're in, and what we need to do collectively moving forward. So we're having that, and also they're all involved as part of the consultation for any papers that come out before they're published, before we take them here. So they are part of all that process to have full understanding of the decisions that we're making and to ensure we've got that support.
Can I just ask about the 18th again? Is it going to be a closed meeting for members to people who are public to attend?
I don't know whether Jess wants to come in, but my understanding would be it would be a public meeting.
Public meeting. Okay, just wanted to check. Thanks.
I'll bring Kenneth in a sec, and just in terms of the impact assessments, integrated impact assessments, I think we'd be on dodgy legal grounds if we didn't do them. So they'll certainly be there.
It's just between now and then. That's my question, and whether we get good enough information to be able to make decisions based on what we absolutely know is going to be the case of the impact, and that's quite difficult within the time frame, I feel. It's just a personal view.
I know what you mean, because I'm currently reading through the impact assessments for the council budget. So Kenneth.
My question also.
Okay, I'm not sure your microphone's on. Easily done.
Sorry. Is the threshold for accessing these statutory services going to rise as a result of the savings? So in other words, is it going to be more difficult for people to access services?
I can come in and answer that. So in Aberdeen, we do have an eligibility criteria for care at home. So we already sit and have done for many years at high and urgent needs. So that is the needs that if we assess a person as need of having high or urgent needs, that is the care that we provide, and that's the needs we meet. So we've made a decision, we will not be changing that. We will still meet the high and urgent needs, and we will still be working with those below that threshold to signpost and look at other support services, whether it be third sector, community groups, anything like that. So we will not be raising our eligibility criteria. So to answer your question, people will still get access to the care if they're assessed they have that need.
Kenneth, sorry, your microphone again.
Again, must be time limited, is it? Because I understand that's the intention. However, my concern is that given the degree of pressure on the system, there must be a pressure on the decision makers to just make make things more difficult to access.
And we would absolutely not be advocating for that. So we have a finite resource and we have demand and needs to be met. What we need to ensure is that our eligibility criteria is applied consistently. So I have enough resource to be able to spread over to the people that need it and make sure that, and that's where our efficiencies come in, to make sure that that needs are being met, just the high and urgent needs are being met, so we can be as efficient as possible to spread our resource to the right places.
And just to build on that, I think the conversations we've been having is we're absolutely going to protect our frontline services. So the decisions we're making will have impacts, absolutely, and we will make sure that we do the impact assessments to understand that and the mitigations that we are putting in place. But as Claire said, we are focusing on, and Amy's working very hard with myself and the wider team to ensure we are protecting that frontline services. It's going to be difficult. It's a lot of money to try and find when most of the money that we spend goes towards meeting people's needs. But as Claire said, we have absolutely no plans to change what currently we deliver, which is meeting our eligibility criteria for high and urgent need. So that should not change. We've had some conversations with many people over the last few weeks trying to understand and make sure people understand if we do this, the impact on that. So I think, and that, as John said, it's changing on a weekly basis because conversations are continuing to understand to make sure we're making the best choice for the people that we're here to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I've been listening with great interest to the last two sets of questions, and I suppose what I am seeking is some assurance and a little bit of narrative as to what role the public response to the budget consultation has had in the working up of the savings options, and just a confirmation definitively, if we can, that that qualitative feedback will be available for us to view for the 18th of March, because I don't think it's any secret, and I've said this on the NHS Grampian side as well, that whereas integrated impact assessments are a valuable legal tool, just speaking personally, I don't feel that they always generate the qualitative impact and the view from the other side of the fence, so to speak, that is really impactful and really important in understanding what these changes will mean for people. So just a bit of assurance and narrative over that piece of work that we did around the budget consultation. What role has that played to date? And will we be able to have sight of that in 3 weeks' time, please?
Thanks for saying the budget consultation process, obviously a really key part of the budget setting overall. And we put our consultation out with the second phase of Aberdeen City Council budget consultations. Our response rate, unfortunately, wasn't that high. We received just over we just received around over 100 responses. So unfortunately, it wasn't a large population, but some of the messages were quite clear, and we can reflect on the consultation that came from Aberdeen City Council as well, the very much that people see the services that we provide as being really important in their lives, and that we are obviously duty bound and want to continue to provide those essential services. And that came through very clearly. There's also the indication, very consistent with the Aberdeen City results, around the charging for services. People preferred to have, if you like, a more moderate and appropriate and proportionate increase in service charges rather than a really high one, as you would expect as well. Those were the favoured responses, and certainly we have built that in to the methodology we're using to set the budget, as you would expect.
Thank you. Can I just have the added assurance, please, that we will have the opportunity to have sight of this when we make our decision in 3 weeks' time?
Certainly, yes, I can reflect on that and provide that as part of the budget paper.
It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thinking about what you just asked, Hussein, in terms of what we were being asked to consult on, surely the position has changed post 18th of March. I suspect that potentially, if that consultation was to run again, in light of what might be being proposed on the 18th of March, there might be a great higher interest level from the general public about potential cuts to services that they might be using. And so I'm wondering, whilst I absolutely agree it's good to see what the budget consultation up until now has produced, I wonder if it will actually not be relevant to what is actually being proposed on the 18th and whether we will actually have any consultation from the public about what's being proposed on the 18th, given that things have changed.
I mean, if I could come in on that, I think you're right. Any consultation is going to be in the context of the time in which it's been carried out. I think given that there's been a lot of media coverage of what's been happening in health and social care over recent weeks, I think you would get a heightened response rate. Now, in terms of the timescale between now and the 18th, officers can come in and say if I'm talking rubbish or not. In terms of the timescale, I don't think we would be able to do a further consultation before the 18th. Having said that, there is nothing to stop any member of the public writing into us to say, I see from the PNJ that you're planning to do X and Y, please don't do it, or yes, please do it. So it's not a formal consultation, but we're not saying don't give us your views. So if anyone, I mean, I've got people writing to me about the council budget, about the IJB budget, and that's fair enough. So yeah, not wanting to cut off people's ability to give us their views, and it will be a snapshot in time. But I'm afraid that's always the way with these things, unfortunately.
I think that through, as we move through a difficult period of time, I think our requirement to engage with people is higher. I think as you go through change, we can have that robust financial plan, but it's really important that we move with the people in the community, that we don't do that in isolation. And certainly that from where I sit, I'm going to be having a greater engagement with providers, and looking to work more closely with the people that provide services and get that feedback and get that view. And I think if we are sensitive to that we can be perhaps more successful than we would be otherwise if we didn't invite those opinions. And certainly the budget consultation process is quite a formal process that kind of happens once annually. And I think, as you've said, that things move on and that it's really important that it's not just a one-off event during the course of the year, but very much receptive to the feedback that's coming through, and we adapt and we move and we work with that as we go through the year, because it's extremely important to us that we talk about that protecting frontline services. But in reality, that happens through working with people and making sure that our services are getting to the people that really need them.
Any more comments, questions? Jennifer?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask again the projected overspend at 24-25, and then the budget savings oversight group that's been working on that. Are we again looking at that situation and sort of learning from what happened in 24-25, because clearly there was quite a change in the year-end position just at Q3.
Yes, I think you definitely learn from every day, and certainly going through from the position that we had at the end of Q2 and putting a recovery plan in place, and then looking at where we were in Q3, which kind of, I think there was, approximate period of time around 6 weeks. It was really important that we recognised that the initial approach wasn't strong enough, and we really needed to strengthen our governance, and that we were able to react and do that. And what we've done is we've really understood where our overspends are coming from. We've got a much greater understanding of how our budget is put together, and that's spread not just, I feel it's not just my responsibility, but everybody within the team bears that responsibility as well. And that's where I think we're so much stronger, because people are really owning what we do and what the impact of that is on the financial position. And certainly this year end, the 24-25 year end, is very much the start of the budget for the following year, and very much recognising kind of what our spend rates are, what a monthly run rate is, what does that mean as we move forward into 25-26, and looking at all the additional pressures that we have to manage as well, and how we play across the savings that need to sit in that space. But very much been part of the work that we've been doing.
Any more questions, comments? Nothing online? No hands in the room? In which case, can we agree the recommendations on page? I've lost my page numbers. Agree the recommendations on pages. Oh, Jennifer, sorry.
Sorry, I forgot to put my microphone on. I was wondering whether we could add to the recommendations, one, to ask the Chief Officer to write to the Scottish Government to ask for funding for the 24-25.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. It's consistent with, as I say, what we've been doing on the chairs network. So we can but try. So I personally wouldn't have a problem with it, unless others disagree. Okay, well, in that case, subject to Jennifer's helpful suggestion, can we agree the recommendations? Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of the meeting. So again, thanks folks for turning up on what is not a normal IJB diary day, and having to change your diaries around a bit. And I thought that was a really helpful discussion. I think I said at the start, we don't want to get too much into the secrecy of 25-26, and we did a bit, but actually I think it was quite useful to have done so. So thanks again, and see you anon, and have a nice weekend.